Hey guys, I'm Brian with BAKCOU, and I want to tell you about the Rohloff Speed Hub 514 and why it's worth the investment. We put the Rohloff Speed Hub on our Jager model bikes. I have here our Badlands Mule Jager. So a Rohloff Speed Hub is essentially an internal gear system. The internal gearing of our Jager models with our Rohloff Speed Hub is located in the rear wheel of the bike. Essentially, this is your transmission. It eliminates the need for the rear cassette and for the rear derailleur system, which is found on most bicycles. When we're talking about the transmission of a bicycle, essentially the most important aspect is the correct size of increments from one gear to the next. The Speed Hub 514 has a 526% range of gears. Essentially what that means is that each gear is 5.26% bigger than the previous gear. So you have 14 gears in the Rohloff Speed Hub. Each gear is essentially evenly spaced at 13.6% increases. That gives you very smooth transition from one gear to another. So if you think about out on the road or you're up on the mountain and you're shifting from one gear to another, you want to be able to shift either up or down without having a lot of clunking or a lot of movement of your chain. So when we only have a 13.6% increase, essentially it makes for a very smooth transition from one gear to the next. It also allows for really quick shifting. So unlike a traditional bike where you have to shift one gear at a time, with the Rohloff Speed Hub you can actually shift from one gear and drop a whole bunch of gears with just the flick of a wrist. So if I'm out on the trail and I'm doing 15 miles an hour and all of a sudden I hit an incline and I've got to drop down and shift down into a lower gear, I can go from 12th gear with the flick of a wrist all the way down to 2nd or 3rd so that I can keep my momentum and climb that hill in the appropriate gear. The great thing about the Rohloff Speed Hub is it requires very little maintenance. Unlike the traditional rear cassette and rear derailleur system where you're having to fine tune from time to time and you get some stretching of the chain and some rounding of the teeth of the rear cassette, the Rohloff Speed Hub requires only a very quick and simple yearly oil change, either yearly or at every 4,000 mile increments. Currently, we have two Jager models. We have it, as I mentioned, in our Mule, and we also have it in our Storm G2. Let me tell you a little bit of difference between the two. So, because the Mule is a hardtail, you can see that there's obviously no rear derailleur, as we discussed, but there's also no need for a chain tensioner. Because of the hardtail of the Mule, that chain is solid all of the time and there's no need for any chain tensioner. Whereas on our Storm G2, because of the rear suspension, that chain tensioner needs to take up the slack as the suspension is moving on the bike while you're riding to maintain a taut chain and allow for optimal shifting. So in conclusion, there really is nothing on the market that compares with our Storm or our Mule Jager models. Given the dependability, durability, and the minimal amount of maintenance that goes in to maintain your Rohloff Speed Hub, it's well worth the investment. We have customers reaching out to us still that have had their Jager models for years and tell us just how amazing they are.